Alright, gents, looks like we are in fact going to go off once again, just me, forever alone, casting. Bit of a shame that, but Kiltus is gonna watch and perhaps make a snide comment or two in the chat if we're absolutely privileged. Time will tell. We are heading off to a more familiar map though, onwards to Quest's Heresy, with Toilailee once again playing the Imperial Guard, but this time the Commissar Lord and Ferik Jurgen rocking the Orcs under the command of the War Boss. Let's see if this brought you guys up to speed. Seems the program didn't recognize, actually wanted you guys to actually see the game.
Strategic point spotted here.
I'm gonna have a bit of a Inception moment here. Yeah, it's up.
Sentinel reporting in.
Once again, a bit of a standard build, although it does look like Toilailee is mixing it up a bit. Probably knowing that against Orcs, the build used in the previous game isn't quite as effective as it would have been against Chaos. Although Ferik was rather unfortunate that it didn't go for the early double Chaos Space Marines build. It would probably have made his life a fair bit easier if he had gone for that instead. With the two shooters starting to lay down the dagger. Of course, at this point of the game, you don't really have the big shooters. They're not going to be a huge threat to the Sentinel yet, but once the big shooters and perhaps even the knobs are coming out, that Sentinel is going to have a bit of a hard time actually staying in the game. Still, it's not going to be quite as incredibly important to Toilailee as it was in the previous rounds, so we'll see how this goes. Comes a lot, of course, coming in, and with the shield, he's going to be very, very hard to take down for the Orcs. They just don't have the range damage to actually take that guy down. Not to mention the sluggers are off away entirely, capping victory points. Warboss, however, is pretty much just doing his thing on these four guardsmen. It almost seems like overkill against this big guy. I mean, his weapon is pretty much just the axe head is pretty much bigger than these poor guys here. You have a sergeant now that can pretty easily absorb these losses and replace them pretty easily. Not to mention, still though, the Warboss is getting a fair amount of experience from taking these kills. Sluggers are doing a pretty nice job at doing a bit of a backdoor capping. Actually, decapping this fully matured requisition force, which is gonna hurt Toilailee's requisition infantry a bit. Still though, one of the sluggers, at least one of the sluggers, is gonna pay with the slide run. There's the double big shooters now, which should make life a fair bit harder for Toilailee. Still though, it's not a bad position. These guardsmen are pretty close to actually being in cover, and the Commissar Lord is now coming in. There was actually a bit of a suppression going on there. I wonder what caused that. Maybe it was just too much stagger or something. A few units seem to be able to actually inflict the short-term suppression if they can get enough fire pouring out. I've definitely seen, for example, well to take into the late game, I've seen Baneblades getting chased by a melee unit or something, and suddenly the melee unit will actually get suppressed. I do think there's a bit of courage damage going on, but seeing how this is Dawn of War 1, we can't really tell what's causing it. There's no actual courage meter or anything like that. Looks like the wee Scottish generators are getting right proper beating. Ugh, that was terrible. I'm sorry about that. Note to yourself, don't try and do accents. You'll just piss everyone off. Still though, this is going to be rather problematic for Ferik to actually deal with. Of course, this kind of turret isn't going to actually hold back anyone, but it does do a fair amount of damage, and well, it is going to whittle down this power farm pretty easily. Yeah, and it looks like it does seem Ferik has actually gone with the double shooter knobs here, very easily forcing off these guardsmen. They are now wrecking this turret. It did manage to take down one generator though, but that's definitely I think it's a small net gain for Toilailee actually managing to take that down, and of course it did force Ferik to spend a fair bit of time actually flanking the turret and taking it out. Warpa's still chasing poor guardsmen and throwing them around. Meanwhile, the shooters have been forced to split as the Commissar Lord is now chasing one of them. They have managed to actually wear down his energy shield at this point, and the Warpa should be able to take him easily in a one-on-one fight. But then again, this is the Dawn of War 2. There's generally no fair 1v1 fights. He doesn't really want to engage this kind of Daga head-on, and these guys are still stuck over here, preventing it. Well, actually, they didn't manage to prevent the decap. Looks like Tourney actually managed to fully cap this point before Ferik actually reacted to it. And this Sentinel is just being a complete pain in the neck. At this point, the shooters can barely stand in cover and actually lay down the Daga. And with a single shooter squad out, they can pretty much can't. Well, they're out damaging very, very slowly. And with both squads now repairing, they're gonna need both shooters to actually do this. The thing is, when you have both shooters like this, both of them can risk getting stumped. Although it does look like only a single shooter squad got stumped. This could get very bad for Toilailee. And with the sluggers coming in with their burners, his Sentinel actually ends up going down. That's gonna be, well, it's gonna be a bit problematic for the next few moments, since his it seems like, while I wasn't watching, the Warboss actually took down the Commissar Lord, meaning he has absolutely no counters for melee units on the field at the moment. That said, he is getting into tier 2 a fair bit earlier, much earlier in fact, things as it turns out. With the current power rates, it's going to be a full 2 minutes until Ferik can actually start tier 2 himself. These guardsmen could be able to hold the line. Look like Ferik is taking advantage of the very decent melee damage of the shooter knob. Pretty much just, yeah, you can just see he's keeping the melee combat. He's doing very nice damage chasing it. And whenever he actually gets a hit off, he's doing some good damage indeed. That said, the Commissar Lord is back on the field. He is wielding the power sword at the moment, which is giving him a pretty nice sprint ability. Not to mention, it does mean he's just generally gonna be laying down even more hurt whenever he's dealing damage. There's a kill, and he is off to level 2. So we have the tier 2 reached. Pretty much only sergeants on Toilailee. He's gone for a very minimal power investment in tier 1, only getting the power sword, whereas Ferik has spent a lot of power. Pretty much 45 power on each of his shooter squad, as well as the 20 power on the slugger boys. It's really no wonder he's this far behind in regards to teching, and it is going to be punishing for him for at least a fair bit longer. He is beginning his tier 2 research now, but Toilailee is bringing out another Chimera, which is pretty much the only sensible thing to do when you have triple guardsmen out and no sentinels for them to support. Decent as these guys can be in bigger clumps, you definitely need a decent on the field reinforcement for them to actually pull their weight. Pretty decent damage from the shooters, taking off the entirety of the Commissar Lord's shield, and he is forced to retreat. These guardsmen are going to be in a bit of trouble. The shooters are going to just move along and inflict losses as the guardsmen are trying to get away. And again, the shooter knob does very nice damage on retreat while moving indeed. And it does look like the guardsmen are now back and forth. Toilailee is breaking off the retreat as the Commissar upgrade just finished, and the tables have turned on the orcs with a ton of firepower coming out of this Chimera. They are forced to get right on out of there. The squad's particularly taking a terrible amount of damage. Ooh, looks like Tourney was a bit careless there with that one guardsman squad. They take a lot of damage from a few special attacks, but they do get off with only a few model losses, which is rather fortunate for him. Could have gotten very ugly if he hadn't reacted faster to them actually getting into melee combat. That said, Ferik is bringing out the tank busters. It's going to be quite interesting to see how it's going. Oh, there's the barrage ability. Tourney does not react to it, but ooh dear, yeah, it actually ended up doing a decent amount of damage, but it's definitely not enough. And the question is if Ferik wouldn't have been better off keeping the tank busters in reserve, or rather away until they could get in range of bombarding the Chimera. At this point, Toilailee knows the tank busters are out, and he knows that he needs to keep the. Yeah, as you can see, it is very easy for Toilailee to predict that these guys are coming in, and he is just focusing all his fire on these 4 guys. He managed to get a few hits on the Chimera, but it's not enough, and as these guys are taking model losses, they are becoming much worse at actually doing anti-vehicle damage. Yeah, they're gonna have to get out there, and it looks like Toilailee is gonna be winning this fight, as the Commissar Lord is forcing off the shooter boys a fair bit. Still, he took a ton of damage from the return volley of the shooters, and they are still on the field. While there's a ton of dagger going on here still, it is gonna be somewhat costly for Toilailee to actually keep up with this kind of firepower. Orcs are now in proper cover, whereas only some of the Imperial Guardsmen are in yellow cover, which is gonna give him a fair bit of an advantage as well. There's another barrage from the tank busters. It does miss the the Chimera, but on the other hand, it does manage to deal a bit of damage to Imperial Guardsmen. But again, these losses just aren't really doing anything. Toilailee can pretty much just absorb all of them at the moment. That said, though, he is falling back a fair bit, but once again using the ability of the commissars in the Guardsman units to break the retreat and stay on the field. At this point, Ferik is really starting to hurt from the constant barrages. He is completely drained on rank, but Toilailee is honestly in the same boat. And with the weird board out now, it could get very dangerous for Toilailee indeed. Although, oh dear, this isn't good at all. Oof. That weird boy just got out with a single hit point. That was incredibly lucky on Ferik's part, but still, if the weird boy wasn't for some reason constantly missing with his attack, I believe there's a bit of an incline here, as you can see, which pretty much messed up his attacks entirely. That said, when he's firing normally, the weird boy is a very strong counter to this kind of blobbing shooter units. So Toilailee definitely needs to be very careful about what he's going to be doing with those. Does look like he does have the stubbornness ability, which means he's just going to be healing a metric crap ton of damage standing close to this many guardsmen. So he can pretty much stay on the field forever as long as he's close to him. And Ferik ended up losing a full shooter squad as the amount of dagger just became too much with the execute on one of these full guardsman squads. Things are definitely looking up for the Imperial Guard once again, although as I previously mentioned, it could get very dangerous for him. The Chimera is pretty much a linchpin holding this together, and both especially the weird boy is going to be able to inflict some horrific damage. Very nice charge from the Warboss there, getting right into the thick of things, just laying down the hurt as the weird boy also lands the sap. And that thing is just going to keep jumping around, and well, I thought it was going to be jumping around a fair bit more than that, but it ain't going to get out there. And unfortunately, he is a single hit away from actually taking out this Chimera, but his tank busters have been forced to retreat, and he just needs to, if he could just get his weird boy to shoot this thing before it actually got repaired too much. Warboss is digging in the fight a bit more, getting a bit more experience, bleeding Toilailee just a bit more dry in regards to requisition, which is working very well out for him at the moment. Toilailee is very low on rec at the moment. Still though, he really can't keep this up, and he needs to be careful. This weird boy isn't in cover. Yeah, he's getting out of there. But yeah, this terrain is really messing with the weird boy's targeting. He really needs to either aim a bit behind this incline, or he needs to pick his fight somewhere else, because it is really messing him up. Oh, there's the stick bombers coming out, doing a fairly decent amount of... Well, actually, it looked like it was kind of decent, but it really didn't do as much damage as one would expect. There's an awful lot of artillery at the moment, and with these 3 guardsman units out, a single moment of not catching it for Toilailee could very much spell big problems for him. And again, seeing how he has oh, there's the grenades, pretty much only hitting the Chimera, but it does force these guardsmen to come rather uncomfortably too close. He does have the requisition to sustain these losses for a while, but the question is for how long. Some of these guard transports are taking a ton of damage. There's the repair. They are very, very low in health indeed. This is just starting to get ugly. Storm boys, sorry, the stick bombers were actually charging in, but they've taken a ton of damage. I think the Zap actually jumped on them, and the Zap is now jumping onto the shooter boys. This is really backfiring on Ferik at the moment, and it jumps right over to the weird boy, doing a ton of damage to him, putting him in very critical condition indeed. And it now jumped over to the Commissar Lord. For some reason, really not doing that much damage to him. I do think it does considerably reduce damage to commanders, but still, the Stormboy, the Tank Buster do manage to get a decent volley off the Chimera, but it does survive once again. And at this point, Ferik is definitely in trouble. He does have his stick bombers, unfortunately, also dies as well, so he's lost a bit of that artillery power he had. Weird Boy is still around, but Toilailee is getting more requisition that he's losing from these exchanges, and it does, at this point it looks like Ferik is going to have a rather hard time indeed actually recovering. And he does manage to actually kill the war boss in retreat. Rather surprising that actually. He's getting he is managing to recap his natural victory point, but at this stage he is definitely in trouble. I do believe he's going to be trying and cabin this other one as well. Keep his forces together, and well, once again with a decent engage, he could deal a lot of damage to this here thing. But again, the thing about tank busters is that if they start losing members, they are going to be absolutely terrible at doing what they need to do. Oh, barely missing the Chimera. Big shame that. And at this point, Toilailee can pretty much just jump out his guardsman and repair it in 20 seconds or so. Absolutely no problem taking that kind of harassment for the Imperial Guard. Once again with the Commissar Lord charge again, trying to count on a few guys. He is probably going to be going for the tank busters. Once those guys actually take losses, they're not going to be able to do anything. That said though, suddenly we have a death threat on the field, and one thing that Toilailee definitely doesn't have at the moment is a counter to is a hard counter to vehicles. He does have a Manticore out at the moment, but that thing is very, very hard to use against the mobile vehicles. So it is gonna be quite interesting to see what he's actually gonna be going with this. As that Death Threat is just trying to get something done, and well, it's having a hard time keeping it up. It doesn't have the flamers out, so it's not gonna be able to do that very nice burst damage the flaming abilities can do. Pretty much just trying to keep these guardsmen off his war boss as he's capping things. And once again, this Commissar Lord is just being a right pain in the neck. Let's have a flak jacket out, which does mean that he has the ability to execute enemy units, and he could be planning to use that to actually snipe that weird boy if he can get close with the poor guy being low enough health. Weird Boy does have a regular infantry armor, which means that unlike units such as the Librarian and the Autarch, he is actually vulnerable to getting hit by that, which could be very, very dangerous for him indeed. He's getting out bonus, rather expensive upgrade actually, 160 reg. Still, it is going to make the death threat a fair bit harder to deal with. Although Toilailee is taking steps in order to actually counter this thing. Does have knobs out on his sluggers, but he doesn't engage into melee combat there. Pretty much just standing there and taking losses, which is rather unfortunate. Oh dear. Pretty nice special attack, but I do think he's overextended, and this somehow actually walks through a Chimera and might go down at this speed up. Oh dear. Yeah, they're down. And but now this Drift Thread is going to be doing awful damage. Oh dear, that special attack is going to get ugly. And there's the bombardment from the Tank Busters finally killing off the Chimera, although the Tank Busters have taken awful damage from that. Drift Thread does take a melter bomb and he has to get out of there, but there's really nothing to follow up at this point. He is going to be able to absolutely wreck it. And it looks like Toilailee actually used the execute ability to finish off the Tank Busters. Ferik is now rather far behind in regards to squads, only having the Weird Boy to actually seriously counter the amounts of guardsmen on the field. That said, the match does look like it's drawing to a close. Once again, Toilailee did extremely well in regards to map control, and he is probably not going to be going below At this rate, he's not going to go below 400, although actually come to think of it, he probably is going to, but Ferik is going to have to do something amazing and actually hold the map in order to win at this point, which does look unlikely, but we've definitely seen comebacks from worse situations than this. So though it would very much surprise me if this ended up happening, it is looking rather grim indeed. Manticore just sitting there like a boss. Actually kind of needs to be careful. If Stormboys ended up jumping that thing, it could go down very easily, seeing how they have power weapons and he has absolutely no hit points. Even something like Slugger Squad's getting close enough to Manticore that isn't parking in base could get surprisingly dangerous. There's the Melter Troopers doing what they can do, but they are jumping right on in on those Stormtroopers. Manticore Strike actually anticipating that and just laying down the fire, but it looked like he was actually aiming for the death threats. I was thinking he was actually going to be targeting his own troops and his own guardsmen, then retreating them and hitting the Storm Boys. Still though, did a fair bit amount of damage, and considering how little anti-vehicle he has out on the field, that death threat has taken an awful lot of damage. Would definitely have gone down if not for the burner upgrade, that's for sure. Once again, a bit of bleed going on here, and these guardsmen are of course going to have to be a fair bit more careful. They don't have any way to reinforce on the field, and it's very much a shame this... yeah, there's an attack, but the death threat had gotten off a regular attack. That thing could definitely have done some terrible damage. Commons a lot, doesn't have the energy to try and execute. Well, maybe he's actually already tried that. Regardless, he is going to have to get on out there. There's once again the Melter Troopers trying to do a bit of sniping, but the Warboss is stopping them, and oh yeah, looks like we're having once again the Manticore coming in, looking rather dangerous, but ooh, they're doing an awful lot of damage there and actually killing the death threat. This Slugger Squad are actually gonna go down now. Whoop, yeah, he is very much down indeed. It's just getting worse and worse. There's the flare keeping the shooters from doing their thing. Wasn't really necessary at this point, but if it wasn't for the wall, the Commissar could have gone down without that ability. So yeah, better safe than sorry. The Commissar Lord really doesn't have amazing globals to take advantage of otherwise. There's a charge once again from the Warboss, pretty much knocking down every single guardsman, inflicting a model loss or two. Though he really hasn't. He's actually gotten a ton of levels just chasing guardsmen and chopping them down, all the way up to level 7, but still he's really not getting much done. And these guardsmen aren't even forced off the field, actually end up just using the Commissar to once again stay on the field. Still have the majority of victory points for the time being. This Weird Boy got very close to death once again. Weird Boy actually managing to stay alive through some very tough, through some very close calls, and he is now level 3, which does mean he's definitely got a lot of hit points. Still though, it's going to be very hard for the Orcs to hold this victory point, with only a shooter squad coming out. Too bad he damaged the Guardsman squad, but these Stormtroopers are definitely gonna tip the balance. It does look like Ferik realizes that he needs to delay this as long as possible, ending up sacrificing his shooter boys in order to give the Warboss and the Storm Boys time to actually intercept. There's other Storm Boy squad chasing off a Guardsman here as well. We do have Ogrins out on the field who are now getting their leader, but the Storm Boys actually... Well, thing is, the Ogrins are definitely gonna win as long as they have the charge up, since the charge is basically just gonna knock these guys around and destroy them. But at full health it could get rather interesting, seeing how their super heavy armor type means they are gonna take a ton of damage from the Storm Boys power weapons. They're definitely not guaranteed to win that particular matchup, and we might actually be seeing it in a moment, as these Storm Boys are preparing to intercept here. Landing down this, and there's the use your chopper ability, which should definitely put it in Ferik's favor, and Toilailee definitely noticed, instantly retreating his Ogrins after doing a brief knock around. You may say what you want, but the Orcs are definitely fighting to the last. Ferik's been down to below 50 victory points for a fair bit while now, and he's just not giving up. Does have to force to bring his warboss back for a bit of healing, and the weird boy is just blasting away. He's really pulled his weight, although he's had a few unfortunate shots in this area. Yeah, he's well done, weird boy. Well done. Definitely been trying. These Stormboys are in trouble. They definitely aren't going to be able to finish capping against these 3 full squads. Looks like if the weird boy joined in, it could get a fair bit more interesting. But yeah, the Commissar are just going to stand there and cap, and the worst part is with his shield up, the weird boy can't even be used to actually knock him over. Still though, the guardsmen aren't going to be able to stand up to these Stormboys without the Commissar Lord, so he is going to go in. There's once again the stop retreat ability. I don't know if Ferik saw that coming, but they do end up definitely killing an entire Stormboy squad right there. This second one doesn't have their knob up, but this zap could be very devastating. But fortunately for Toilailee, it actually ends up jumping up to the Stormboys. If it had jumped over to one of the other squads, that could have been very devastating indeed. Bit of a warboss on Commissar Lord action going here. Warboss having an advantage at level and having the spiky armor, which is going to add a bit of more damage. But I do believe at this point that the Commissar Lord is going to be winning this. He's got a weapon upgrade. The warboss is still using his regular chopper, and he is actually getting knocked back despite trying to charge. Getting very low on health, but it does look like he is going to make it. Another Stormboy coming out from Ferik, it looks like. These guys are actually, well, they are pretty strong option, to be honest. Pretty much nothing aside from the Commissar Lord can actually stand up to them and not take considerable losses. There's a Stormtrooper trying to assassinate the weird boy. He could actually probably just walk in and start doing melee damage on them. It's not like they can do. It's not like they actually do damage in melee. And we might be seeing his wonderful little special attack. Always love that one with the whole planting his stick on the ground and knocking things around. And oh, that's unfortunate. The Commissar are just, of course, taking out the poor Stormboy knob. Just about the one orc you didn't want to lose. And these, yeah, I'm guessing this Stormboy squad just got blown up by this poor Manticore. Another squad going down entirely for Ferik. Still holding on, but at this point it does look like it is just about gonna be over. He is capping a victory point. He does manage to decap this natural here as well. He's not gonna be able to finish that, but it is gonna be enough for him. He's already up 1-0, and as soon as these guys finish capping, the countdown is gonna go down and it's gonna be over. Ferik definitely held its own in this particular match, and in comparison to the last one, so GG to both players. And with that, it looks like Toilailee is gonna be advancing with a 2-0 win. Well played to both of you gents, and thank you all for watching. We'll be seeing you guys around.